Welcome everyone to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Epitchonistim. It's a great pleasure to be joined today by the founder and chairman of IDSF, Brigadier General Amir Avivi. General, thank you so much for joining today.
My pleasure, Moshe.
General, let's just jump right in. What can you share with us that is going on right now in this war?
Yeah, so today we're broadcasting from New York. Been in a week now in the US, Florida, and New York. Yesterday participated in the ZOA gala. And from here, today I'm flying to Brussels. We have a convention in the European Union connecting all the new MPs of the European Union to really what's going on in Israel. And I think that the main issue that is being now dealt with is Lebanon. There's a lot of talks about ceasefire, and I want to be clear on what Israel is trying to push and what is Israel's position. The basic understanding in Israel overall, looking at the war, is there cannot be in the future any terror armies on our borders. So basically, we need to create a situation that they will never be able to rebuild themselves again. And Israel is demanding not only the withdrawal of Hezbollah from South Lebanon, but also a reality where they cannot rebuild themselves again, ever. And if they try to, Israel will have the right to continue and degrade them and attack, just as we do in Syria for years, attacking constantly any force that is trying to build itself along our borders or endanger Israel, even if it's far from the border. It doesn't seem at the moment that Hezbollah and Iran and Lebanon are agreeing to Israeli terms. So Israel is intensifying more and more the attacks. We have seen multiple Air Force attacks in Beirut, in Sidon, in other cities, systematically continuing to degrade Hezbollah, killing dozens and dozens of terrorists every day, hitting warehouses and many launchers and positions of Hezbollah. And also the ground forces are now enlarging the operation in South Lebanon from the first towns along the Israeli border to the towns that are 5-6 kilometers from the border. So the war also on the ground in Lebanon is intensifying. It's clear because it's not Gaza. In Gaza, we basically conquered pretty much everything and we're eradicating completely Hamas step by step. In Lebanon, Israel is not planning to conquer Lebanon. So obviously, at the end of the day, there will be some kind of agreement, but it needs to be an agreement that really ensures that Hezbollah cannot rebuild itself and the dismantling of Hezbollah continues by the international community, by the Lebanese themselves, and it's needed also by Israel. So this is ongoing, and the fight continues. In Gaza, the IDF is operating very strongly in North Gaza and in Khan Yunis. In Khan Yunis, more than 250 terrorists have been killed in the last day or two. We had the chief of staff visiting Jabalia, talking about more than 1,000 terrorists killed and 1,000 apprehended in the last few weeks. So we're continuing to dismantle Hamas. It's a process that is ongoing, and there are forces who served in Lebanon that were now sent to the south to help continue the attack also in Gaza. I would say Hezbollah has maybe 20% of the rockets left, most of them short range. So even in the last hours, we saw 40 rockets being shot. They shoot every day, but it's not endless. We know that they're suffering from lack of rockets. They won't be able to shoot endlessly the way they are, as we see in Gaza. In Gaza, from the reality that in the first day of the 7th of October, they shot more than 4,000 rockets. Now we see weeks and weeks that we cannot shoot anything, or maybe we shoot one rocket. And at the end of the day, as we are really surrounding Hamas and Hezbollah and disconnected Syria from Lebanon by destroying all the passages, they cannot rebuild themselves. This helps degrade them systematically. I think that one of the big challenges, really looking at the next administration, and as we see President Trump appointing very good people actually to really work close with Israel, is to bring an understanding that yes, everybody wants the war over, but it can be over only in one way: a decisive win on all fronts. There's no other choice. We cannot have a reality where our enemies will be able to rebuild themselves again. We are now, this last Shabbat was the fourth parasha since Rosh Hashanah. And out of the four parashat, two of them describe the reality we are facing now. Parashat Noach, it starts by saying the land was filled with Hamas. And when God sees that the land is filled with Hamas, it doesn't say, let's do a pinpointed operation. Let's attack, go out and let them rebuild themselves. No, it says we will eradicate them. And he floods the whole world to eradicate Hamas. Same happens now when Sodom and Amorah, God sees all this pure evil and decides to eradicate them. In both events, there were very few people who didn't deserve being eradicated and were saved, whether it's Noach or Lot. But at the end of the day, pure evil needs to be eradicated. And we need to deal with Hamas and Hezbollah and also the Iranian regime and get the job done. And we're starting to work very strongly, really to push an understanding that the war can end only with the collapse of the Shia axis, that we need to attack together Iran, to dismantle the nuclear sites, we need to destroy the long-range missiles, and really bring down this axis. This will enable building very strong ties with the Sunni world, bringing peace globally with Saudi Arabia and all the Sunni world, which extends all the way to Indonesia, and really create a different reality. When we do that, we can go to step 3, which is applying sovereignty in Judah and Samaria, in the Jewish towns, in the Jordan Valley, really building a solution for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that doesn't undermine the existence of Israel, and really finds the right balance between our need to sit on the mountains, to be in the Jordan Valley, to build our nation, and also self-governance in the areas Palestinians control, whether it's AB and so on. But first, we need to win. We need to win this war decisively, and we're all the time making sure, working with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defense, that we're continuing our path to victory. I've been talking to many units and soldiers, and although they've been fighting for a long time, and some of our reserve units have done more than 300 days of service, I see them very motivated, very resolute. As long as the country moves towards victory, they feel that they're part of really history. They're doing something very, very meaningful. And this is why we see the forces continuing to fight and endure the challenges, many challenges that we have. Unfortunately, this war has a price, and we have soldiers fallen in Gaza and in Lebanon. It's a heavy price to pay, but the other choice is to find ourselves in a few years going to a full-scale war again, and this is not an option. This time we need to make sure that we win in a way that will secure really Israel for generations to come, and not doing all these operations again and again, and find ourselves letting our enemies rebuild themselves. Okay?
General, thank you, of course, for sharing all of that. And thank you to all of our viewers and supporters who are watching now, whether they're watching on the Zoom or tuned into YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, please consider liking and subscribing. And so many questions coming in now. General, if we can go back to discussing Lebanon for a moment. As you mentioned, there are Israeli soldiers dying in Lebanon, which is, of course, tragic. And every day the war progresses, it puts our soldiers at risk. But at the same time, every day that the IDF is fighting in Lebanon, it's degrading Hezbollah more and more and more. So the question is a deal in our best interest at this moment? Because if we make a deal, let's say based on the 1701, isn't it just a matter of time before Hezbollah tries to rebuild themselves? Are we convinced that a deal with Hezbollah right now would bring peace in Lebanon?
Yeah, to answer that, but so an important question that I want to answer. We talk a lot about decisive win. The Prime Minister talks about total victory. And the question is, okay, what does it mean? What is total victory? What is a decisive win? And the answer is that in Gaza, it means dismantling Hamas as a governmental and military entity, just as the goal of war was set. Meaning Hamas is not going to rule Gaza anymore. It's not going to be a military entity and not rule Gaza. It doesn't mean that there will be zero terrorists. We'll have to probably, in the very long term, deal with terrorists, but really dismantle them as an organization in Gaza. Whether they go somewhere else, build themselves in Qatar, I don't know. In Gaza, they have to really destroy Hamas as a military and governmental entity, bring back all the hostages. This war is not going to stop until all the hostages, those who are alive and those who are dead, are returned to Israel. And if we need to keep the Gazans for years on the shore of Gaza and not rebuild Gaza and not have the day after, there is no day after without our hostages and without Hamas being eradicated. And the third thing about Gaza is setting the terms that never again there will be a terror army in Gaza. And for this, we need to be on the ground. This is why the IDF is building roads, it's building infrastructure, it's building positions inside Gaza. We understand we are going to stay there for years. We're not going anywhere. It will take many, many years to dismantle everything and to maybe even go a process of de-radicalization of the Gazan society. It's a process. And it needs to be understood. There is no just going out suddenly, because then they will rebuild themselves. It's not an option. This is Gaza. As for Lebanon, and this answers your question, 1701 is not a solution. 1701 means that maybe for a while they leave South Lebanon, but there is no real mechanism to make sure they don't go back. And also beyond the Litani River, they will rebuild themselves again with tens of thousands of rockets. And 1701 says that IDF cannot operate in Lebanon. So 1701 is not a solution. This is why, by the way, they say, we want 1701. We are willing to do 1701. No, it's not, because they understand that they will be able to rebuild themselves. So Israel is saying, no, not 1701. We will have full freedom of operation, and we will degrade Hezbollah if they build themselves. And Israel is pushing for dismantling Hezbollah. So this is more Resolution 1559 from 2004, 2 years before 1701, that says that all militias need to be dismantled. This is the right thing to do. If the government will agree to a reality where Hezbollah can rebuild itself, huge pleasure. Everything we did in Lebanon was for nothing. So we're really, really fighting to make sure that the only deal that can be on the table is dismantling Hezbollah at the end of the day, or certainly not letting them rebuild themselves. Full freedom of operation for the IDF to operate if there is any attempt to rebuild capabilities. And still, they have to dismantle all these capabilities they have already. So I feel that I think that although everybody's talking about deal, it's tomorrow morning. I don't see it happening so fast. We've seen also with the hostage deal again and again, people telling us, yeah, we'll have a ceasefire. I think it's a process, and this is why the IDF to really enhance pressure is really intensifying. Sorry, the attacks in Beirut, in other places, to let them understand every day that passes, they are going to be degraded more and more dramatically, and they are shooting sporadically. They are not able to shoot in a planned way. They don't seem to have any meaningful strategic assets. I mean, I want to remind everybody, for years we talked about them flattening whole neighborhoods, buildings falling down, um, thousands of rockets and missiles shot at Tel Aviv, complete destruction of Air Force bases and probably the Kiryat. Nothing of that happened. Yes, it's not fun to have 40 rockets being shot simultaneously, and many of them, by the way, fall in open areas because they are not even able to aim the shooting because they are shooting really in a planned way. But as I said, we need patience. It's not indefinite. They don't have a definite amount of rockets. And by the way, the IDF has attacked dozens and dozens and dozens of launchers in the last 2 weeks. So it's not only that they're running out of rockets, we're also destroying the launchers and storage houses and the headquarters and continuing, by the way, systematically to kill the leadership all the time, the tactical commanders and also the leadership. One of the last guys that was targeted was the spokesman of Hezbollah. We saw a few weeks ago him speaking, and then as he was speaking with many TV stations, the IDF Arabic spokesman told to the people to move out of this area, and all the reporters ran and took their microphones and ran away as the guy was speaking, and so he was targeted now. He won't speak anymore.
General, let me ask you, so if a deal is reached in Lebanon, let's say it is in fact 1559, Hezbollah is dismantled, but you just said that there would be a need for the IDF to have full freedom of operation. So are you suggesting then that there would be a long-term, quote unquote, military occupation in South Lebanon, meaning there for the next decade there need to be Israeli soldiers in Lebanon? Would that be the only scenario to keep Hezbollah at bay, or is there a certain point where the Israelis leave Lebanon and we go back to how things were?
No, well, I think that what the IDF is talking about and the government is one, having a dead zone, meaning the villages near the Israeli border that we won't let them go back to these villages because these villages were 100% military positions, and we need like 2 or 3 kilometers where people are not coming back. So the whole villages that were completely flattened because they were military positions, Israel is going to insist on this area to be a dead zone. Nobody goes in to secure our towns. This is one thing. The other thing is that in South Lebanon, we are saying we keep the option if we want to raid an area, if we want to go in and out, do a raid, to raid South Lebanon anywhere we want, if it's needed. Third thing is that most of the work we're talking about the Air Force. The Air Force continue to degrade them, and the Air Force attacking and preventing a buildup of capabilities. So think about it, Moshe. For 20 years, we have collected intelligence. We knew exactly where every storage house, rockets, missiles, where they are in Lebanon, and we didn't do anything. So now that we degraded them, we need to keep maintaining this reality. So if they start building, a headquarters in some place or hiding missiles in a building, Israel needs to be able to attack this building and bring it down, and not letting them accumulate capabilities again. This is what we're talking about. And of course, and just as we do in Syria, same thing. But I think, Moshe, that what we need to look at the overall picture. The overall picture is that you have the head of the snake. The head of the snake is Iran. If you really, really want to bring down this whole axis, you need to hit the head of the snake. And we set the stage. We destroyed their proxies. We took out their defense. They're completely defenseless now. And now it's about 1 or 2 airstrikes. That's it, with the US. We can bring down the head of the snake and dismantle the whole axis. So we cannot look at Lebanon disconnected from what we want to do with Iran. The key is Iran. And the key is convincing President Trump that there is only one solution. We need to attack the sites, and this will help bring a collapse also to the proxies. It will impact Hamas, Hezbollah, everybody. Once U.S. shows leadership and goes also into a very short and pinpointed fight, because Israel did most of the job, this can be a game changer. And if we have to do it alone, we'll do it alone. But it will simply prolong the war and it will take more time. If President Trump wants to shorten the war, there's only one way to do it. Take the strategic bombers, fly above Iran, and get it over with.
Thank you, General. And speaking about destroying, the military capabilities and nuclear aspirations of Iran, is there a ticking time clock? Is there a deadline by which something has to happen in Iran? And if we wait too long, they will be able to rebuild themselves, or they will be able to shoot off a nuclear weapon? Do we have a timing issue right now? Just kind of this waiting game that's happening?
So the time is being monitored by the intelligence, looking at their intentions to build nuclear capabilities. The Israeli attack that was carried on Iran took care of some of these capabilities. But definitely we see Iran moving towards trying to procure nuclear weapons. And as soon as possible, we need to deal with this. So we know Iranians are very sophisticated. They are sending their diplomats all over and trying to convince, let's talk, let's say, they're trying to buy time. We shouldn't buy to this Iranian tactics. They invented chess. They know very well how to play a chess match. But we have to understand that games are over. It's not about sanctions. It's not about the JCPOA. It's not about diplomacy. It's about one airstrike and bringing down its axis.
Okay, final question. In terms of trusting our intelligence community here in Israel to guide us, as you are suggesting, do you have confidence in the Israeli establishment's intelligence community?
So I think that, our intelligence excels at bringing operational intelligence. We see what was collected in Lebanon. We saw the pagers. We saw very sophisticated capabilities, including, taking the whole Iranian archive from Iran to Israel. When it comes to strategic intelligence, really how you analyze, through what prism you analyze the strategic intelligence, I think that you have to, each leader really needs to use his own common sense. I mean, if we in IDSF, we didn't enjoy the intelligence of 8200 or, all this intelligence of the Mossad, we used our common sense. And it was 100% obvious to us that war is coming. And we said it 2 years ago. I would assume that if we had all the intelligence, we would have had even more what to base our claim. So I think that usually it's the strategic level that the intelligence doesn't always really get the picture. They're very good at military intelligence, finding terrorists, targeting sites, and so on. But when it comes to the overall strategy, people need to use their common sense and use the intelligence, but also analyze it through the right filters, mainly filters of connection to reality and common sense.
Brigadier General Amir Avivi, thank you so much for joining this briefing. Safe travels to you and all of your important work, and especially as you go to the European Union. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing. We will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. here in Israel. Until then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.